Welcome to our first Meet the Makers session of Beyond Conference 2021. Hopefully you've all been engaging with the main stage and enjoying the talks on there. We have got an hour's worth of projects coming up for you. We've got 4 projects, which I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone. And we will go through them. Everyone's going to have about 15 minutes each. They'll be presenting. And then if you've got questions, you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a chat stream. I say hello in there now, and then there's a Q&A space, a couple of tabs along, where you can ask your questions of speakers, or if you click their name, you can send them a direct message as well and keep in touch and connect that way. We've got coming up 4 speakers or 4 projects to hear from. Curator's Museum of Plastic, which is an imagined future museum built to teach future generations about plastics and tell the story of activism starting 2021. Emma Cooper, project lead for Curators at Cooperative Innovations, will be delivering that one, and I'm sure she'll correct me if any bits I've got wrong then. We've got Seeds of Life with Christine and Leto, who I believe are the producers. And the Seeds of Life is a meditative, interactive journey through the natural world. After that, we've got Wasted into the Microverse, which is a VR experience revealing the future of our discarded waste, and that'll be presented by Ian Ravenscroft, creative producer, and Chris Randall, creative director. And last but not least, we've got Interrobang Digital, which is a genre-busting theatre meets online gaming real-time thriller, and that's going to be presented by Kate Hargreaves, director, producer, and artistic director of Gideon Wheeling Theatre, and Jack Lowe, who's a location-based gaming consultant and narrative designer at Story Futures. Now, I've given everyone a very strict time frame to stick to, so I am going to disappear off the screen in a moment, but first invite Emma Cooper to join me, and I think she's going to be here in a split second. There we go, it worked. Emma, I will hand over to you if you're happy, and yep. I'll let you reintroduce and take things away. Let me mute and hide myself.
So, let's pray to the technology gods. Can we see that? Yes, we can. Yes. Okay. Hello, my name's Emma Cooper. We've got an echo. I don't know, how do you solve that? I don't know how to solve that. I do not have 2 windows open. Oh, I didn't pray hard enough to the technology gods. Okay, and also I did turn my notifications off, but apparently that didn't happen. Okay, let me just, let's see if I can share the tab specifically. That might help. Is that better? I'm just watching this, like, the chat.
Sorry, Emma. Everyone else seems to think it's fine, so I think it's me. I'm going to find the second tab that I've opened, and I will leave this to the experts and stop interfering.
That's okay. Okay, hello. I'm going to start again. My name's Emma Cooper. I'm project lead for Curators at Cooperative Innovations. Cooperative Innovations is an immersive technology studio, and we really care about how we can use immersive technologies to bring people together in digital spaces. I really wish I could be in Belfast, but sadly we're about to launch the product in November, and there's just not enough time for me to be there and also work with the team. So it is what it is. I want to talk to you today about Museum of Plastic. So Museum of Plastic is an imagined future museum built 100 years from now in 2121. We applied and were lucky enough to get accepted to British Council's Creative Commissions as part of COP26 that's happening this year in November in Glasgow. and this solves a number of problems for us. So I'll talk you through what we tried to do. So Curators is a platform for cultural storytelling, virtual tours for museums in the heritage sector. We're able to bring people into a space from multiple devices. Because it's immersive, that means that we can do lots of really exciting things with the content. It means that we're able to change time. We're able to, we're not constrained by space. Space and time are not a problem for us. So one of the things that we're doing whilst we're developing the platform is trying to talk to the museum and heritage sector about what is possible on the platform. This opportunity came up from British Council. We had this brilliant idea from one of our creative producers, Lowe, and here we are. So, next slide. Our creative challenge for this was if we built a museum 100 years from now, what would that look like? What story would we be telling of the previous 100 years? And what if that wasn't terrible? What if the future isn't dreadful? So we've all become immersed in dystopian storytelling. I love a cracking dystopian sci-fi as much as the next person. But Leo, who we're working with, is currently obsessed with the concept of solar punk and the idea that actually maybe as a species we've got more going for us than dystopia. I've worked in interactive media for a really long time, and I'm one of the things I'm really interested in is the Games for Change movement and using our platform and the technologies that we have to try and change behaviour. But changing behaviour is really hard. Humans are slow and frankly lazy, and getting people to change their behaviour is really difficult. One of the ways that we can do that is with positive instruction. So often what we hear, especially from the government, especially at the moment, has been don't jump in that puddle, don't jump in that puddle. But as emotional, creative beings, we hear the exciting verb, we hear jump. We hear jump in the puddle, and we're like, yes, we're going to jump in the puddle. Whereas actually what we need to hear is go around the puddle, because that is the positive action that needs to occur. So that's what we've done with the project. We have developed an idea of a future where things are better. Part of the project, part of the commission was asking us to work with partners in different places across the world. We teamed up with a group of activists in South Africa called Green Pop, who introduced us to another group called Baz Arts. Baz Arts are an organisation that work with street artists in South Africa to create really amazing, impactful murals. So as part of the work, we've commissioned 6 artists to create 6 murals that have been used in South Africa as part of workshops and interventions with the community in South Africa in the last year. The murals represent so much more than just paintings. They've been used as a creative tool for the community to come together and to talk about the subject of plastic. So, like, how they're impacting their environment and how they need to work together to behave better with plastics. They've been used in schools workshops. The artist of this mural went into schools and talked to them about both plastics and also the power of art to communicate a message, which is a joy in and of itself. And then what we did is we asked the artists to think about how we would represent those murals in this imagined future museum in the virtual world. We had the opportunity to introduce the artists to Tilt Brush, which means that they've created these blended pieces. So in the museum, you can include both the 2D mural that exists in the physical world and a 3D mural that only exists in our museum. This is the first piece that's by an artist called Chief Observer. It's titled The Choice, and all of the murals have kind of fed into the design of the museum as well, which has been a pure joy. I'm going to play you a little video. This is from our partners in South Africa, just talking about what's happened there.
The experience has been phenomenal creating the piece. It's been a life-changing moment, and having to see the kids getting inspired to see something unfolding on the wall.
The interesting thing about paint is that it's really just paint, but it has, in the right hands, the ability to tell stories and do so much more than just a bucket of paint can. So, it's magical.
Doing a wall here in Langa it's been phenomenal, because people now, they can look at it, they don't have to, subscribe, they don't need to, have DSTV monthly premiums, but it's just there waiting for them. Anyone can just look at it and then get inspired.
There's something in the way that we communicate outside of the spoken word that people are then able to internalize and hopefully ruminate on, to reflect back into their own lives as things like the color and the shape and the way it flows together, that will hopefully inspire people to stop and actually consider, what it represents.
So in the beginning, when we got here, we sort of had workshops, one at the kids shelter, one at the primary school. Spoke to the kids, we showed them our ideas. We actually got some of the concepts, even with this wall. There's a lot of snippets of really good ideas that some of the kids gave us.
With the kids also, everybody wanting to paint and the local artists joining us on the wall, I think it's for the community, they're taking ownership of what's happening here. So it becomes their own project in a sense. Because we're in a visual age as well, people don't want to read stuff anymore, It's great if there's a visual on the wall and there's a message with it. It's instant, and that's what I love about street art, and especially with this project, there's a message going out without people having to read. They can just immediately see, and it brightens up. It makes it beautiful.
Well, we got that video yesterday. I was so happy when I saw it. Time, okay. No. So we've worked with artists, and then also the science bit. We've worked with the Museum of Design and Plastics, and also with the University of Hull, and their specialists in the circular economy. So when we were doing our future casting, what we were doing was saying, if we have addressed our problems with plastic in the future world, what does that look like, and what needs to happen in the next 100 years for that to occur? And then that's the story that we've constructed by consulting with PhD students and researchers all around the world. Actually, Hull have tapped us into this network of circular economists, which has been a brilliant learning experience. So we're at a point where the museum has 4 wings. We'll be launching a piece of content every week during November, starting with the environment wing. I can't wait for you to learn our story and start sort of sharing useful advice of what to do now to save the future.
Sounds like a good note to wrap it up on. Thank you, Emma. I'm so sorry for throwing you off course with my double window. I mean, I've got about 8 windows open, but thank you.
That's okay.
Thank you so much. I always knew that you'd give us a good presentation. And I've put a link in the chat, so people, if you want to find out more, Emma and Lauren are in the chat, so you can send them a direct message, or you can visit their booth. There as well, and drop them a couple of messages. Thank you, Emma. Christine and Leto are going to join us on screen now. Let's go. Let me find Christine. There she is. Emma, you just need to press leave if that's okay. Thank you. And because we're so tight on time, I might hand over to you guys to introduce yourself and get going if that's all right.
Yeah, perfect. And
I'll try not to send any rogue comments in the chat.
Thank you so much, Miriam. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. Fingers crossed. Okay, so that looks like it works. Hi, everybody. Good morning. We're super excited to be here, albeit virtually, to Beyond Conference. I'm Christine Saab, and I'm here with Leto Mead, and we're co-directors of the immersive experience Seeds of Life. So I think just to start, we're gonna play a short kind of teaser trailer to give you an idea of what our experience is like. So Leto, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, I don't have a share YouTube, but I've got a share tab, so let's try this. There we go.
It is calling out to you. Reach out.
Great, thanks, Leto. All right, moving on. So that was the taster. So I hope that kind of gives a good sense of what of the Seeds of Life experience. Essentially, it's an interactive VR experience playable on the Oculus Quest 2. So using not the hand controllers, but using hand tracking. So really, this project was started by Leto and I. Filmmakers who were, had a bit of interest in virtual reality. I'm actually a documentary director and Leto's an animation director, but having worked together before, we found that a lot of our interests overlapped, and we applied for a small fund for first-time VR directors offered by the National Film and TV School and Story Futures.
Amazing, cool. Yeah, we just wanted to talk a little bit about our inspirations and our early conversations around sort of this idea of, the hidden life of trees and entangled life and how nature communicates. That was really inspiring to us. And though not exactly on the scientific perspective, we wanted to just approach it from a more emotional point of view and sort of,
And it slowly sort of became this kind of supernatural take on it, which we very much enjoyed working on. But as I said at the beginning, we were very much first-time VR directors, so we didn't quite understand what we were getting ourselves into, I think. So on the screen, I'm basically showing our sort of very first interaction storyboards. It was great to work, obviously, with VFX artists and games designers, but I think Leto will agree that, not having much experience in games design, there was a lot of kind of big ideas that then had to be sort of molded to what was possible. So although Leto and I kind of understood the storytelling in the conventional sense, with the sort of interactive and immersive nature of VR, we quickly realized that this had to kind of be an experiment, and that we had to sort of mold our original idea, our storytelling idea, to fit in with immersive methods.
Exactly.
So it was answering questions such as, you know, how do you make a player understand what they have to do to move forward? How do you create patterns that make the experience both seamless but also kind of exciting and new? And most importantly, how do these movements and their feedback sort of serve the overall story?
Exactly. And next we're going to show you a little bit of a concept video, and it was us trying to figure out a bit. I think sketching is all great and it works really well for films and storyboarding. It's really useful. But for something like this, we almost had to play around with sketching in 3D and trying to figure out how things would work. So we'll just play that now for you.
So this was the original concept trailer. There's no sound, Leto.
Let me try doing that again. Sorry about that. Cool. And though things have changed quite a lot, we really wanted to keep this sort of meditative nature that we were always wanted to achieve with it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the art, as that's what I worked on the most. But so first I wanted to discuss a little bit about the sprites. So this was a bit of a tricky, first of all, occasion, because we were trying to figure out, okay, what exactly are these things? Are they the mycelium? Is it the roots? Or is it somehow the nutrients that go through them? I always sort of have this feeling of like these sort of, and like almost like life energy orbs or something that were hidden underground. And we really wanted to play with this sort of like submerged feeling. So in the beginning, it's almost like in some way, a circus of colors. But it sort of had, again, like inklings of this sort of underground space kind of feeling. And that's what we were sort of then sort of took on and wanted to continue with this, which has ended up being this sort of blue color palette that we stuck to. It just felt very somehow subconscious or subliminal, something quite calming, which was our sort of main goal. If you go to the next slide. And then a little bit, we'll talk about these gods. So there was something that we sketched in the beginning, and I wanted them to sort of maybe like represent certain parts of the forest, like the flora, the fauna, the part that fungi had to play throughout history, and sort of not have to give it to the player's face, but sort of hint towards these beings. So yeah, again, you can see I went from sketching to a 3D sketch, and then passed everything down to the VFX artist to bring that sort of to life, and obviously polish it too. Yeah.
So despite a lot of kind of pushback from people around us during the process, we were very keen to stick to our original idea of making sure the game didn't need hand controllers. The reason why we were being sort of advised to bring about hand controllers is that there would be kind of haptic feedback, which would allow the player, which would, I think, kind of instruct the player a little bit more seamlessly.
It's also a lot easier. Oh, sorry. It's just a lot easier to code too, because obviously you have a button that you're pressing. While hands, you're really stuck with some algorithms and also whatever Oculus gives you. So it was a really tricky thing that we had to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the reason why we were so sort of married to the idea of using hand tracking is we felt that, you know, this experience is really about putting the player in a kind of meditative and relaxing state to sort of fully be immersed in this new sort of supernatural nature-inspired world. And we thought that, in a sense, holding hand controllers would almost remind them that they were in a VR experience, rather than kind of seeing this sort of amazing way that their hands are replicated in the experience.
Yeah, and also like just seeing older people, you know, people who didn't grow up with controllers, phones, and all these things. Like my mother trying to play a VR game is very difficult. You have to almost relearn, you know, what your hands are doing. It almost feels unnatural, even though, you know, you give it to a kid and suddenly they're in there and they're doing everything and it works really well. But that's one of the main reasons why.
Exactly, and I think that sort of it was very important to us that this experience is accessible to everybody, which is also why. That's the slide I'm looking for. So, which is also why we sort of took it a step further and created an option that uses gaze control. So in that option, you essentially use your eyes. So rather than sort of using your hand to reach out and touch the sprites or the seeds, rather you use your eyes and your gaze to move ahead in the experience, which means that you know, people without who aren't able to use their hands or their fingers for any reason are still able to experience the game. Sorry, Leto, you were about to say something.
Yes, I was just going to say we have to speed up, but I was just going to say that we were in conversation with some charities about that, just because we think it's important for a game that is about connection to include everyone.
Okay, so maybe we should skip over this part, but essentially what we were going to say is there was a lot of playtesting to kind of make sure the story was being communicated to the audience. And I think just to kind of skim through, basically our future plans for this is that, you know, we understand that VR, AR, and XR are a massively burgeoning sphere, but a lot of it is to do with kind of exciting games, productivity work. And so we feel that there's a real need for kind of relaxing, meditative experiences, and what we would like to kind of do in the future. Leto, please interrupt if I'm
yes I'll just quickly go on. We just want to create again these spaces, these sort of dreamlike meditative zones of different worlds, and sort of aiming towards this meditational aspect. Just quickly to say about the video, the playtesting, it was just funny to me how different people interact with things. You know, being a filmmaker, you sometimes think that everyone's going to view it in the same way, but being a game, you know, some people are grabbing it like this, some people are doing things with their legs, some people are, you know, and that's what makes VR so interesting to me.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. There was a lot of love in the chat for what you're doing, and I think you're absolutely right that there is a big space in the market for us all to get involved in some more meditative practices. There's a link to your booth in the chat so people can find out more, and if you just want to pop anything in there about where people, you know, can get involved, speak to you more, for people who want to hear some more. But thank you very much for sharing it. It's so nice to see all these visual and experiential projects. I am going to ask Chris and Ian to join the screen now. And then,
thank you, and thanks, Miriam.
Thank you very much. See you soon. I'll see you in the chat box. And we'll move on to hear about Wasted into the Microverse, which is a VR experience revealing the future of our discarded waste. Christine, you just need to press leave, otherwise you're still here. And we've got Ian Ravenscroft, creative producer, and Chris Randall, who's creative director from Second Home Studios. And I might as well just hand straight over to you, if that's all right.
Okay, fantastic. Nice to meet you, everyone. And I'm just going to share our screen. Hold on one second. Can everyone see this? Hooray. Okay, fantastic. This is Wasted into the Microverse. This is a project from Second Home Studios. So we're an animation studio based in Birmingham, and we'll talk a bit more about that shortly. And this project came about from the Story Futures Kickstart scheme. So we applied, not having vast experience in narrative VR experiences, and we've learned a lot along the way. So we'll talk you through a bit about our journey. So Chris, do you want to introduce the studio?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting us along to this. It's fantastic to be part of this conference with our very first immersive project. We initially started life as a stop motion studio, which we still are, and we've expanded to incorporate 2D, CGI, visual effects, and traditional puppetry. We're kind of curious about new technology and new ways of working, we submitted to Story Futures, and they liked the idea that we had for Wasted, and that's this project is the end result of that.
Okay.
So Ian, do you want to go through?
Yeah, sure. So Wasted is we were really keen when we started this project to create an end-to-end narrative experience. So I think the Kickstart scheme was really kind of built for R&D, but we actually thought the value of telling a whole story. We come from a filmmaking background, and we wanted to focus on that narrative. So the initial idea of the concept was to tell the story of our materials. We both found some facts that if you dumped a aluminium can in the sea, it would take up to 100 years to degrade and disappear. If you dumped a plastic bottle in the sea and let it degrade, it would take up to 1,000 years to degrade. And quite shockingly, if you drop styrofoam in the sea, it will never, ever degrade. It will be there forever, and it will outlive us all. And that was quite shocking to us, and we wanted to tell that story. So we devised a narrative where we shrunk you down to the size of a bottle cap in this immersive VR experience. You jump inside the can. It takes you 100 years in the future along its lifespan. And then you jump in various different objects as you go further into the future. So 1,000 years with a plastic bottle, and then off into the infinite on a styrofoam raft. And along the journey, you talk to these characters, which we gave VO records to. So they have voices, they have personalities, and they tell their story. So we've got a video to give you a flavour of what we've done. So that is just description there. So this is a bit glitchy, but it'll give you a sense of where we ended up, and then we'll take you through a bit of how we got there.
What are you doing here? No one ever asks to be made the way they are.
We were born to make
Immortal.
things easier.
Made to be recycled, reused,
in fact, everyone was dead.
Reborn.
Well, who's laughing now?
And I do.
Unwanted.
They've taken everything from you.
No one held me again.
I'm so tired.
Doesn't mean anything if it's all shipped off and burned.
There's not much life here.
This is your fault. That's not really the way it should be.
Definitely time to say goodbye. You are a single-use human.
Okay, so that should give you a bit of a flavour of the sort of visual aesthetic, a bit of the voiceover in there as well. Let's just move along. So why make it? Why did we decide to? So as an animation studio, we've got skills in-house in terms of narrative, in terms of prop building, set building, and thought that they could be applied to VR. And obviously we need to collaborate to achieve what we wanted to get this interactive experience together. So we wanted to explore a social impact narrative at the heart of this. It gave us a real reason to do it and a drive and impetus to push into an area that we weren't as familiar in. And it gave us, as we were going through, kind of this really solid through line that meant that we kept focus on what was important. And it was about communicating something that people don't know about the materials we use every day. Every day I get a package with styrofoam in it, I feel a bit sad. Now we've made this film. So it's had an impact on me, and hopefully people that experience it can get the same out of it. And so how do we do it? So this is the important bit. And I'll just do a quick intro on that and then hand over to Chris. So this started out as an R&D project for us to use these sub-micro cameras. So they're tiny little cameras that are about the size of the sugar cube, and we wanted to use them to create 360s at a really small scale amidst these piles of rubbish. That quickly became sort of quite challenging, and realized we couldn't have the immersion that we wanted to. So we moved to partner with a VR agency called Holosphere, who have been great collaborators, to translate what we were doing here and do a hybrid process where we did physical things in the studio, which then got translated into 3D environments. So I think, Chris, do you want to talk a bit about the photogrammetry process?
Yeah, sure. Could you skip back one to the camera field test? Yeah, cheers. Thanks. So yeah, as Ian said, the cameras that we were using, the Zimia sub miniature cameras. So the lens is about the size of a thimble, and the camera body itself is about the size of a sugar cube. But they kick out like 4K stills, and we'd used this on a motion control project for another artist piece, based on the SARS outbreak in China, where we were moving this camera through a hotel model where the corridors were about 70 millimeters high and about 50 millimeters wide, so kind of like a doll's house scale, and we were sort of snaking this camera through this model. And when we applied for this, we thought, wouldn't it be cool to try something where we could, can we achieve an immersive experience where the elements are captured using this sort of technology. So we did some tests, and we tested different focal ranges of the actual camera to see what its limitations were, and we quickly we realized in the process of doing that in order to get the spatial difference and the parallax necessary to create a real truly immersive experience, we would need to actually have some three-dimensional assets in the super foreground. So we used the sub-miniature camera to capture the middle ground plate. So we had the worlds were generally in three parts. There was super foreground, which was the object you were standing on, which was the can or the bottle. The foreground, which was the 3D objects that you interact with. The midground, which we used, which we created 360-degree plates, which we used the sub-miniature camera for. And then the background, which was a CG generation with a skybox, just to kind of complete the picture, really. So like a 360 digital map painting. So for the super foreground and the hero objects that we wanted people to interact with, we leaned heavily on our traditional prop making experience, and we went back in time and took out the good old Nokia 3210 and things like that, and we did some photogrammetry passes of the hero object as they would have looked in their brand new state, and then in their sort of long weathered state after several hundreds of years. And we used motion control model movers to capture 360 turnarounds of all the objects, and those tapped into the Unreal build. Those tapped into that workflow particularly well. We were able to get very mathematically accurate passes of each object. And it was interesting seeing the results. The photogrammetry passes, the models were so detailed. It was really nice to see. As you can see here, that the object on the image on the right of the broken down toy monkey the level of surface detail was so detailed. It was really nice to see. We had to compromise on that in the end for optimization's sake, but which was a lesson that we learned. So yeah, that was the main way of capturing modeling the images in a sort of a semi-traditional way. And then in terms of giving the object character, they were animated in Unreal, in line with the voice recordings that we cast directly to give personality to each of the objects, which I think really was one of the most interesting parts about it, because we are suddenly putting yourself in the position of a phone that's been discarded for several hundred years, and the personalities that we were writing into these characters were suddenly took on very sort of it's kind of slightly haunting human stories, when you sort of anthropomorphize a discarded razor and sort of put yourself in the position of something that's been thrown in a box in the dark, then thrown in a bigger box in the dark, and then shipped off. And the parallels between that and certain human experiences around trafficking were sort of alarmingly similar. So the sort of the voice performances that came out of that was one of the most interesting creative parts of it for me. Yeah. And then we ended up culminated, as Ian said, we place you on a styrofoam raft and off you go into the infinite, surrounded by a load of styrofoam icebergs, because basically that's the only thing that will last that long. And we found one of the main statistics that we stumbled across that was very alarming, was that the amount of microplastics that a human being ingests in their lifetime at current rates could potentially equate to the same amount of plastic used to make 2 wheelie bins, which was basically one of our, that's the sort of the full stop in the experience that we ended up at.
Yeah, and just to sort of make all of this visual work that we did here with the photogrammetry and building the environments was really informative. We learned a lot about the hybrid process of taking something physical and digitizing it. We purposely kept interaction quite simple, so you just select objects in each environment to talk to, and it's very much a narrative experience. We didn't want to get into the idea of too much learning games mechanics straight away, because it's not our skill set. So we really leaned into our strengths with this as a studio, and then I think any future work we do in this space will be about working through the mechanics more and adding sort of new game elements to it. So what did we learn? We've got a couple of things. Well, we learned a lot, and so we learned to make compromises in immersive that we don't usually have to make in animation. So usually we have complete control of the frame. We can design our worlds the way we want. We can move through them in the way we want, and preserve the view of the viewer. Whereas in immersive, obviously, we're creating these 360 environments, and we did a whole new storyboarding process to get to that point, and compromising on fidelity of the graphics as well, because we're used to having everything absolutely being, we're total perfectionists, and in VR you can't be at this stage. We learned that our skills in animation studio have a lot of potential to push further into immersive, so there's certainly things that we'd like to do more of, and we're developing new ideas currently. That really the storytelling is still the key to a great experience. All of this technology and wonderful graphics and interactions is great, but actually the storytelling was the thing that engages us still. It still excites us the most, and without the story and the kind of the traditional skills in being able to engage an audience with a concept and a theme, it won't work. So still that is a huge part of what we focus on. We learned the collaboration between different skill sets produces unexpected results. So we didn't expect the photogrammetry of the models to be so effective. We didn't expect the 360 plates to be so effective. Just knowing that we combined a physical world with a digital one is something that we were quite pleased we managed to achieve from the original R&D brief, because it would have been very easy to do it all digitally and not get some of the kind of quirks that we've got in the visuals of the experience. And yeah, we learned we can create a narrative that has social conscience at its heart and still have an impact. So it was something that we were really keen to do, and we think that we've done that, and it's made it something that feels like it has more weight to it overall. And yeah, and I suppose finally, the technology has a long way to go. I think there's a load of development in VR that we can go further. I mean, we optimized this for Oculus Quest 2, just because it was the one that we both had, and also it had the audience that could potentially bring to it. You know, we could actually share links and get people into it, rather than just relying on installations. Yeah, and what's next for us? So we're developing new narrative experiences in VR, take what we've learned to the next level and see how we can push animation into VR in new and exciting ways. And that's really exciting for us. Oh, and that's my time.
Well, you know, I'm glad we're on the same page with the timer. That was brilliant. Thank you so much. Again, it's really nice to see all these really rich visual presentations, and I can tell that people in the chat are enjoying them too. So I will thank you for that one. Ask you to stop presenting, and again, use the chat to point people in any directions you want to point them, or pick up questions, or direct message them. I can see Chris, you've already picked up a couple, and yeah, hopefully we'll keep an eye on everyone's progress.
Okay, lovely. Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
And then coming up for our last project of this session, we've got Kate Hargreaves, director, producer. Sorry, you can see I'm looking at my other screen. I won't pretend I'm not. Director, producer, and artistic director of Gideon Reeling Theatre, and Jack Lowe, who is location-based gaming consultant and narrative designer at Story Futures. And they're going to be on our screen in a second.
Hello.
Hello.
And I will hand over straight away. You can tell us more about Interrobang. Is that
great? Yeah, I'm just getting the slides up. Sorry.
No problem.
Can you see those? Are we there?
We can.
Hi there. So yeah, we're here to talk about our recent collaborative project. Jack and I met through during the lockdowns. Some of you might have played Interrobang digital, which we've been offering free. Some of you may be planning to do. So a little bit about who we are, who my company is. I run Gideon Reeling, which is a West London-based theatre company. Our work's what's often been called immersive. Obviously, it's very enveloping. It's participatory. The majority of our work's site-specific, so it's really informed by specific locations, physical spaces. It's in the past been very in-person, very much live practice until fairly recently. In most respects, I think the value of actors and up-close interaction is not going to go away for us. But obviously, lockdowns turned up. Our work, it's always blurred the boundaries between real world and fictional experience. And in the past, it's always integrated comedic theatre, but tried in most respects to be quite thought-provoking. And we've fused that with participatory gaming, ARGs, treasure trails, filmed content, and often it's durational immersive theatre, often taking hours or weeks or days to play. One aspect that we do want to address is that something that's very important to our work, to us in our work, is that some of it can be free at the point of use, so that we can make opportunity for diverse audiences to come into playful environments, so that we can reach audiences that don't really consider themselves to be theatre goers, make theatre that people don't even know is theatre or haven't sought out. So that theatre in public places has been very important to us. It's probably one of our stock in trades, really. And through that experience, we can encourage learning and invite questioning through that interaction and playfulness. Now, I hope this video plays. This will just give you a little idea. It all brings us up to Interrobang, which is what we're really talking about today. And we hope this will be
genre busting. It's theatre. It meets online gaming. Players get drawn into a real-time thriller and they become investigators tasked with solving a very shadowy murder case. It's run through a bespoke website and it uses QR codes, which I know a lot of us felt were sort of on the way out prior to the pandemic, and the pandemic has really probably been our friend there, because they've come into their own. This is the second digital iteration of this show. We crowdfunded a pilot during the first lockdown, and that's how we met Jack, through Story Futures. So I will play the video just to give you a little overview of what it's all about. Oh, I have to put myself on silent, don't I?
There's been a murder, and we need you to investigate. So well done for stepping up. There's something that needs digging up. Do you have the stomach to do it? If the killer disappears, so does the truth. Celebrities, politicians, corporations all around the world will smile behind their closed doors. Dust Inspector was a man whose enemies outnumbered his friends. You will get access to the Net Police database, including all classified police interviews conducted so far and all available evidence at this point. We will update you as and when new evidence becomes available. We've got suspects to quiz, and you'll need to be ready to make decisions on which leads to follow. It's your job to make sure that the cold body does not become a cold case. So, pop your uniform on, get yourself ready. You'll need a functioning computer, a notepad and pen, and an inquiring mind. You decide if you want to go it alone or solve it with a sidekick. Keep your eyes on your email or your junk mailbox for communications. Good luck.
Am I back? I'm back. So it's about lobbying, and it's had quite a long journey. It started in 2015. It was a location-based game in East London, and obviously 2020 came around. We had to find some way to make something that was a bit that adapted our practice, developed our practice, so we could be a bit more agile and get through COVID. As a small theatre company, it was, quite a challenge. Interrobang fit the bill quite well as an existing vehicle that would translate our style to, potential digital delivery. The reasoning was that Interrobang obviously might provide some immediate income, but had the means to scale up. With our work, that's always been quite difficult because it's in person and people cost a lot of money, as we all know. And hopefully it was a way to sort of future-proof our company a little bit, and not to mention COVID-proof our work a bit. So the hope is that with pivoting into digital, which we had scant experience of, our work can actually reach a broader audience anyway. So the big questions for us were, how do we allow participants to become role players in the same way that they do in our live work? Because play and interaction and real up close personal stuff is very important to us. Obviously, how do we keep the business afloat, but make a show that's accessible for people who don't want to go to theatres at the moment, or can't go to theatres ever, or don't consider them theatres a place that's open to them. And also we wanted to explore new ways of actually delivering our work, and perhaps exploring ways that other companies can start to deliver work. So have I moved on? I haven't moved on. It comes in two forms, this show. It's this ticketed digital version that you guys could play. Obviously, if you haven't played and you wanted to, just get in touch with us and we can give you a free pass. The second aspect is Interrobang Local, which at the moment is only playable for people in our local area in West London. This is how we got involved with Story Futures, and the relationship with Story Futures and with Jack allowed us to access Arts Council Cultural Recovery Fund money, which has been really invaluable to us. and it's allowed us to attempt to address one of our key aims, which is to provide theatre that is free at the point of use, which obviously we'd not even been able to imagine during the pandemic. So we think the most interesting aspects and innovative elements of our journey right now are focused around the local version of Interrobang, and the role of the collaboration in making the work, and how we make the work come to life as a piece of immersive transmedia theatre. And if we get time, we'll talk a little bit about what the future of the work is. So obviously, to move into a digital territory, we really needed extra skills. We really had limited experience or expertise in delivering digitally. So we made a lot of partnerships. All of the partnerships and the collaborations have straddled the local and the digital games. So I'll sort of address them broadly. We started out getting in touch with our local theatre, who didn't have any idea who we were, which is a bit depressing. But we've set up a collaboration for them to help us sell tickets and support us. But they were also very interested in finding a way for us to access young people. There's very little to do around here for them, as everywhere, and there's an enormous amount of digital poverty in Hounslow. So we have been discussing whether we can make a device loan scheme. So that is for the future, but I won't go into that too much. But there's also very, very low engagement in the arts in Hounslow. So we were working with them to develop a local audience. Have I just jumped a slide ahead? Maybe. No, Jack. No, you haven't, Kate. You're just faffing about. Now I have. Sorry, folks. So testing found that most people engaged with the pilot version that we made, the video content and the interactive nature of it on a desktop, laptop. So we actually decided that we needed to make a bespoke website. We were just working with QR codes at that point, and a QR code platform. So we made this interactive police database, which we got a lot of help from a website designer who played the piloted version of the game quite diligently, actually, for many, many hours. And he offered us his services if we took the game into the next stage. He's a creative technologist, web designer called Tom Wright. He's not with us today, but he's a gamer and a game designer. And actually his skills were really, really integral to the way that the game currently works, because he's worked across all aspects, the audience journey and the narrative structure and the game mechanics and the audio and the video and the project management. So we've been really, really lucky to connect with him. But also using the platform created by Bual and Touch TV. So Bual are a video reporter hub, and they've been kind of ahead of the curve in a lot of tech innovations for a long time. They made a brilliant app called I Am Human, which was to help connect refugees with family. And they were making a platform that's very much like Pokemon Go 15 years ago. So they're kind of amazing, and they're working a lot with QR code generation and using that platform that was available to us very cheaply, almost free at some points, because we've had a long relationship with them. Actually was really interesting to find ways to connect digital and physical spaces, and they're very interested in exploring that themselves. So there was a real lovely, rich skills exchange, and we tested the back end of their site for them as well. So it was quite a rich relationship for both sides. And then, of course, we met Jack through Story Futures. Jack has worked with location-based gaming, so his skills were also really invaluable in sort of taking this local idea of the game to the next stage. So perhaps I should hand over to you, Jack, so that you can discuss who you are. Let's go to mute. Hold on.
Sure. I think I'm going to have to breeze through it very quickly. So if you go to the next slide, Kate.
Yeah.
So basically, Interrobang is a transmedia experience, as Kate explained. It's an online game as well as combined with a location-based audio experience, and that's where our expertise as collaborators, as different kinds of collaborators, could really come to fruition. If you go to the next slide, Kate. So my academic work, my background is in location-based gaming. You can find out more if you look at my blog. But basically, I have a particular focus on using QR codes and in other forms of sort of located media like audio, which really helped us sort of develop the location-based aspect of the game. So next slide, please. So Interrobang Local is a location-based audio experience. It's part detective game, part audio entertainment, and part sort of gentle stroll around the town. So it's based in Brentford in West London. It's free invisible theatre, essentially. And it's based on our in-game local newspaper. So it's really sort of playing with that sort of ARG, merging, blurring reality with fiction. So if you go on to the next slide, please, Kate. So it's based on a crossword that you can find in the newspaper, and the solutions to the crossword give you the locations where these QR code stickers are located. So people can come across it through just finding the newspaper initially, or by finding one of the QR codes in the real world. And if they do that, they're kind of drawn to, they're directed to where they can get the newspaper to then do the whole experience. So if you go on to the next slide, please, Kate. So this is just one example. This is our second to last slide. So this is one location in Brentford. Basically, the way we did it was we scouted the locations and we looked for sites that were interesting from a local community perspective, because the story is like a sort of investigation into the regeneration of the area. So this St. Lawrence's Church, basically these graves have been dug up to redevelop this church, and the community was really sort of against it. And we thought that was a really powerful story to tell. So we basically integrated that into the wider narrative of Interrobang in an interesting way by sort of thinking about the power behind it. And it kind of really fits in with the overall theme of the game in terms of the invisible forces of power that sort of shape society that are beyond the reach of local communities and democracy. And then we're on to our last slides, which is just a feature. And you can basically read it there. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but the current version is running for 3 months, and you can play the digital game by booking it via the Waterman's website. But the location-based aspects we're hoping to develop further in different locations across the UK, not just in Brentford, so that we can connect to wider audiences. And we'd love your feedback on the digital game. So please do try it.
Brilliant. Thank you both. Sorry for lurking on the screen like this. I just needed to wrap up. Thank you to you guys for presenting this one, and to everyone else who has in the session as well. Hopefully our audience will get in touch, find out more, and get involved and play the game. I'm so sorry that I didn't get the chance to play this one before. We were so busy preparing for the event that I missed it, but hopefully I'll get it.
Don't worry, I'll send you a link. Just let me know when you want to play it.
Here we go. That'll be fun. Thank you. We've still got some conversations with our researchers on over in the Other Spaces session, if anyone wants to go and check those out. And we will be starting again very shortly on the main stage for a couple more sessions for the afternoon. If anyone's missed anything, or if you guys want to share the link with people who said they'd watch but didn't, the replays are going to be ready this afternoon, and you can see the replay button down the left hand side, so you can come back and watch yourselves again if you wanted to. And then if you want to come in and see some of our other sessions, we've got 1:30 today, 2:45 and 5 o'clock this evening. We've got 6 more sessions. And I will leave it there, I think. Thanks very much to everyone. Cheers, Jack. And I'll leave the screen as well. I think that's enough from me.